Okay, I hope Be'ezer Hashem we could finish the Maimah today, Bli Neder. And tomorrow morning, Thursday, and Monday we'll learn something on Shavuos. This is also about Torah, the two states of Torah. We'll learn also something on Shavuos. And those who are around on Shavuos, Be'ezer Hashem, Tuesday night, which is the first night of Shavuos, I'll be giving 2 shiurim in the tent Gimel, for men and for women. 1 o'clock a.m. and then 2:45 a.m. The first topic is going to be the power of a mitzvah and the meaning of a mitzvah, a fascinating debate that took place between Rav Yitzchak Hutner and the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the second class is going to be on the split in the world of Torah regarding Israel and how we move forward. That's the night of Shavuos. And the second day of Shavuos, in the afternoon, 6:45, there'll also be a shiur in the tent Gimel. That's the second day of Shavuos, Thursday afternoon. The topic is Naomi, Ruth, and Arpa walked into a therapist's office. Everybody is invited. So that's Tuesday night and Thursday afternoon, Be'ezer Hashem. So we are Perek Bais, right? Maimer im Bechkosei telechu, Parshas Bechkosei Likkutei Torah, the second chapter, Perek Bais. It's page 89, or Memhei column 2. Memhei column 2, or page 89. On top it should say Bechkosei. Today's class is dedicated by Dina Dornbush in tribute and honor and merit of all of the hostages, calling for the immediate release of the hostages. Bring them home now. Amen. The class is also sponsored by Don't Pay That Ticket Until You Speak with Attorney Zev Goldstein. Sponsored by, that's the language, sponsored by Don't Pay That Ticket Until You Speak with Attorney Zev Goldstein. So thank you, Attorney Zev Goldstein, and I won't pay the ticket. I won't pay the ticket. ZevGoldsteinLaw.com. Thank you very much. Okay, so Perek Bais. So I hope you remember the Chazara that we gave last time, which was Monday morning. And the Maimah, which began to discuss the 3 questions, Im and Bechkosei and Telechu, went into the whole discussion of the difference between Malachim, angels standing, and souls moving, Mahalchim, and the whole difference between creation as a manifestation of words or creation as a manifestation of thoughts, and not just thoughts that are the preparation for the words, but thoughts as they are anchored and connected to the source, which is forever expanding and growing and never fixed. And Yeshua's words to the Jewish people, Be'ever Anar Yashvai V'Seichem E'olam, your forefathers come from Ever Anar, from the other side of the river, and he explained at length what the river represents. Nahar Yotzim Eden. Eden is the source of Chachma, and river is the machshava that comes out from it. Yisrael alu b'machshava, and as he put it, that the river always comes out from Eden. Eden is the source of Chachma, that's what Eden represents, and the river is the revealed extension of that, expansion of it. It's like every epiphany comes from an unconscious source, and the revelation of that, that's the Nahar that comes out from Eden. Eden is intangible. And the Nahar is like the river that comes out from Eden, and it streams and it flows and it expands and it grows because it's rooted in a source that never ceases. It's not fixed, it's not limited, it's not defined. And over there's also letters. Because when you have an epiphany that comes out from the unconscious, every idea is accessed through letters, through oisius, through words. We think through words, we think in words, and we speak in words. Of course, the words are much more subtle. You don't sometimes realize that you're thinking in words, but one person thinks in English. You can't think without words. Machshava needs oisius, but the difference is oisius hachakika or oisius haksiva, right? There's letters that are engraved where the letters don't assume their own identity outside of the source, the stone. Where oisius haksiva, written letters, where the letters have already an identity, even though they become fused with the parchment or whatever you're writing on, the papyrus, whatever the paper you're writing it on. And the same is true in a person. Oisius hachakika also represents oisius, but it's like when the machshava is flowing from the source, so there's oisius, but they're not felt as an independent entity, they're subsumed, they're part of the experience. When a person has an idea, the flow, there will be oisius, but the oisius are not felt. That's machshava ilah. Machshava tata, the lower level of machshava, which is how you prepare for speech. And speech itself, there the oisius assume a very concrete identity, oisius haksiv. And this was the mashal for the difference of malachim and neshamas. And because of that, the neshamas are called mahalchim, because there's a constant capacity to grow and expand. As he put it at the end of Perek Aleph, the soul grows its love and its awe to Hashem from day to day, more and more and more and more, because it's always searching to come back to its source. What's its source? Its source is Tchilas HaMachshava, Eiver Anar, to the other side of the river. And therefore, until you don't come back to who you really are, to your source, there's a certain lack of complacency. There's no smugness. The soul can't become smug. So there's this incessant search and yearning that the soul seeks to go back to that place of Eiver Hanar. Until then, it's not content. And over there too, he says it's not going to be content, because V'nahar Yotzei, the river is always emerging, flowing in the present tense. That was the main summation. So the person is never stuck, a soul is never stuck. On the contrary, the nature of the soul is constantly to expand and grow, because it's in touch with that interface between infinity and finiteness. So it never is comfortable in finiteness, not even spiritual finiteness. Bais, v'hinei makam hahiluch ve'eis hahiluch l'chal adam li'yismarch v'magdil ahavas el Hashem hu be'eis hatfila v'kaidem hatfila psuke de zimra. The space of this type of growth, the location where this growth happens, and the time for this type of growth, for this type of hiluch. Hiluch again is the idea of mahalchim, the neshama moving, always moving. For every person in which there is this contained space and time for a person to expand his or her love to Hashem, which is what we're talking about, v'nahar yotzei, the constant growth of the neshama, v'nasati lecha mahalchim b'nayim de'me'ela, which machshava, as he said, is a mayan haneveya tamid. It's like a wellspring, that it never, the water that was here doesn't stay here. It's not like words or rocks. This rock is not going to be substituted for another rock. But even the water that you're watching right now, a moment later, there's going to be new water. The mayan haneveya tamid, it's always a pulsating, vibrating, flowing, streaming well. Mevin davar metaich davar. And as he put it, when one thing comes into machshava, if it's connected to the source of seichel, it's right away going to expand more and more. So the time for this expansiveness or growth, and the place for it, for each person, he says, is be'es hatfila, it's during davening, and kaidem hatfila, before davening, what we call psukkah de zimra. Generally, when Chazal use the word tefillah, they were referring to Shmoneh Esrei. Right? Tefillah is the 18 brachas. Today it's 19 brachas for Shmoneh Esrei. That was called tefillah. So that's what it says, be'es hatfila and kaidem hatfila, and before davening. So before davening would be the preparation for Shmoneh Esrei, which is psukkah de zimra. The verses of song that we sing, which begins with Baruch Shamar, all the way till Baruch Hu. And then you have the blessings before Kriya Shema, and then you have Krishma, which is a mitzvah min Torah, and then we have Tefillah, which is Shemona Esrei. You say the blessing after Shema, and then you have Tefillah. That's the structure of davening. And it's in the blessings that were instituted through the Anshe Knesset Agdola. The Anshe Knesset Agdola is the men of the Great Assembly, and they instituted the text of most of the brachas that we make and the Tefillah. The Rambam writes in the Laws of Davening, Hilchas Tefillah, that when the Jewish people came back to Eretz Yisrael in the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash, many of them forgot the clear Hebrew language because of the exile. Yeah. And generally the dispersion that happened, and they decided to make a generic nusach of tefillah. Right? It's interesting that for hundreds and hundreds of years, almost the first 1,000 years of Jewish history, there was no text for davening. There was a mitzvah to daven. V'avadetem es Hashem Elokeichem. It's avodah shebelev zu tefillah. The Rambam says it's a mitzvah min Torah to daven, and every day. But what does that mean? Yeah, you can meditate for an hour, or you could talk to God for 3 minutes, or even for 20 seconds. That was a mitzvah of tefillah. And everyone decided when, how, in what language, what place, and what capacity, and how to do it. Just because they made the nusach of tefillah, they didn't mean to get rid of the first one. In other words, tefillah was a very personalized, emotional experience. And you can do it for 1 minute, you can do it for 3 hours. Right? That was tefillah. And this is already from the beginning of Judaism, all the way from Avram Avinu, all the way till the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash. And Shlomo Melech built the Beis Hamikdash 440 years after they came into Eretz Yisrael, and then it was there another 410 years. Right? So you're talking about the first almost a millennium of Jewish history. If you want to go from Avram Avinu, it's already more than 1,000 years. There was no text for tefillah. The Anshe Knesset Agdola were the leaders of the Jewish people, 120 people, during the beginning of Bayis Sheni, including Mordechai and Ezra and Nehemiah, Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. The Pirkei Avos says Shimon HaTzadik was the last survivor, Shimon HaTzadik. So they instituted the text of brachas, most of the blessings that we have, including Shacharis, Mincha, Ma'ariv of the time of davening, and the text of davening. The blessings before Shema, the blessings after Shema, the blessings we make on foods, the blessings we make on mitzvahs. This is all, most of them are from the Anshe Knesset Agdola. And the Tefillah. The Shemona Esrei with 18 brachas. Later, Rabbi Gamliel added a 19th, V'lam al Shirim. I'm saying that's Pasha to understand the words that he's saying here. So he says, this time, when is the time that the soul expands? So he says, during Tefillah, and before Tefillah, the Psukei de Zimra, and the brachas. Psukei de Zimra is, of course, as I said, from Baruch Shamar till Baruch Hu. And then you have the blessings, because you have the blessings before Kriya Shema and after Kriya Shema, all before davening. This is all before Shemona Esrei. That's what he says. Psukei de Zimra and brachas. This was all instituted for us by the Anshe Knesset, the men of the Great Assembly. Al Yedei Avos Ha'olam. Interesting expression. It was instituted through the Avos Ha'olam, through the fathers of the world, the tatas from the world, the patriarchs of the world. Kamay Merazal, the Gemara says in brachas, Tefillas Avos Tikno. The Tefillas were instituted by the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The Gemara says there in brachas, Tefillas HaShachar, Daf Chavav, that Avram Avinu was Mesaken Shacharis, and Yitzchak Mincha, and Yaakov Ma'ariv. The Gemara brings different psukim, that each one was Mesaken the Tefillah of the day. Avram is the morning, Yitzchak is the afternoon, the evening. Vayetze Yitzchak l'suach basada lifnois arev. Yitzchak went to meditate before the evening. What was he meditating? The Gemara says that's Mincha. And then Yaakov Avinu, vayivga b'makoim, vayolan sham kidma hashemesh. At night, he also prays. What is it? It's Ma'ariv. And Avram Avinu is Shacharis. Vayashkem in the morning. Vayashkem Avram b'boker. So the Gemara says, Tefillas Avos Tiknu. Yeah. So how do you reconcile it with the Anshe Knesset Agdola making the Tefillas? So generally, the literal interpretation is Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov didn't write out the Shemona Esrei. They didn't make a nusach for davening. Right? All the brachas, that the Anshe Knesset Agdola wrote. They created the concept of Shachas Mincha Ma'ariv, but for them it was a personalized meditative experience of the Avos connecting with Hashem. But the theme of Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv, that was created by Avraham Yitzchak, and then Shirek gave it its form, its present form that's still observed among the Jewish people today. That's literally how you interpret it. Now here the Alter Rebbe gives a whole different vart. And his vart is that the way they designed tefillah by tuning in to the energy of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We'll see. So this was the Stakanai Shadel, the Avos through the Avos, meaning through the energy of the Avos, that's tefillah of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. What do we mean here? Ve'midas gvudula gvura v'rachem. The tefillah is built, its chemistry is made up from the three Avos, from the energy of the three Avos. The midah, the attribute of gdula, greatness, that's Avraham Avinu. We say in the morning from Divrei Hayam Lecha Hashem Hagdula, V'Hagvura, V'Tiferes, V'Netzach, V'Hoit, Kichel B'Shemaim V'Aretz L'Cha Hashem HaMamlacha. Gdula is associated with Avraham Avinu, which is Chesed. Then you have Gvura, which is Yitzchak. Gdula is greatness and expansiveness, and love is expansive. Chesed, when you're in a place of love, you're expansive. There's a Gdula. Gvura is discipline and strength, and Rachamim is compassion, empathy. That's Yaakov Avinu. Midas Yaakov Avinu is Midas Rachamim. The Zohar says that the Avos are these three Midas. If you look at davening, you'll see that the way they built davening is from the Avos. So it's deeper. It's not just the Avos davened. Tfilas Avos tiknum. The davening is made up from the Avos, from the energy of the Avos. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that is davening. It's made up from Avraham, Yitzchak, from the souls. They carved out the words and the experience of davening from the souls of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. If you look in davening, you'll see it's filled with psukim. It's filled with verses that represent Avraham Avinu. Verses that represent Gdula. L'cha Hashem HaGdula. What's Gdula? Gdula is v'legdulosei ein cheker. We say this in Ashrei, right? His greatness has no inquiry, you can't inquire it because it's infinite. There's no beginning and there's no end. So this element of davening incorporates the midah of Avraham Avinu, because this is beinunus, this type of meditation, when it's done in a regulated and internalized way, allows the ava, the love, to grow. When a person realizes that every experience in the world is essentially a manifestation of Ein Sof, a manifestation of infinity. So when you talk about the L'Gdolosei and Cheker, it puts a person in touch with the authentic energy of the universe, which comes from Ein Sof. This creates an ava, a yearning to connect to the truth and not to a superficial veneer which doesn't even have real existence. The davening also has those sections and those verses that represent Gvura. Gvura means the awesome strength, v'yirasei yizbarach, creating an awe, yira, a reverence, an awe, a respect, and that's the midah of Yitzchak. V'chein yesh psukim ha'mevarim rachmanusei yizbarach. And then there's also many psukim in davening which capture compassion of Hashem. Ashehi nikras nachalas Yaakov. Nachala b'li mitzarim b'li gvul. We say in Shabbos, in the Kiddush, v'chalticha nachalas Yaakov avicha. The inheritance of Yaakov. It's a pasuk in Yeshaya. So the Gemara says in Maseches Shabbos that the nachala of Yaakov is b'li mitzarim. It has no boundaries. Hashem tells Yaakov, "Faratzta yama v'kedma." It's a fine of a negba. You're going to be strong and spread to the yama of a kedma. It's a fine of a negba. That's a nachala b'li mitzarim. No borders. Mitzarim are borders. So the Gemara says, when it says v'achalticha nachalas Yaakov avicha, in Yeshaya we say it in the Kiddush Shabbos morning. Many people in the Nusach of Kiddush. So the Gemara says this is without borders. Faratzta yama of a kedma. It's a fine of a negba. Why is Yaakov's nachala b'li mitzarim? So the Rebbe is going to explain, because this has to do with midas harachama. This has to do with empathy or compassion. Because Rachmanis has no borders. It's shoyre, it dwells, it relates, and it's connected to all the worlds. Mavriyach min hakotza el hakotza. It says about the Mishkan that they held the bars, the krashim around the Mishkan, they had brichim. They had bars, right, to be able to hold them together. So you had a bar on the top, a bar on the bottom, coming halfway, but then there was a briach hatiche. The center bar was mavriach min hakotza el hakotza. Goes from one end to the other end. And actually in Zohar it says that it actually went around and around b'derech nes. The Zohar says that's Yaakov Avinu. You have the brichim on top, on the bottom is Avram and Yitzchak. Briach hatichen represents Yaakov Avinu. So min hakotza el hakotza, what does this represent? Love has its limits when it's shayach. Gvura, discipline, also has its limits. Midas harachamim, empathy and compassion, is nachla b'li mitzarim. And he says here, it relates to all the worlds. Mavriach min hakotza l'kotza. From the lowest to the highest. Adrei ma'mailas. Even in the highest of levels, they're still applicable to have rachamim. Why? What's the rachamim? Ki kulam eina matzmiyusi yizbarach ki imchinasara. Because all of them, even the highest worlds, is a ha'ara, it's a ray. It's not atzmiyusai. There's a sense of empathy that it's already, it's like you have the ray of the sun, comes from the sun, but it doesn't capture the sun itself. It's not the sun itself. So he says, even the highest worlds, Rachamim is someone who needs compassion. You say Rachamim is, you have compassion because there's a void, there's something missing, there's loss, there's pain. He says, yeah, there's pain. The pain is, it's not atzmayusa yizbarach, it's only a ha'ara. Because the very definition of creation, even the highest state of consciousness, there's a longing for God himself. There's still a longing. There's a void. Why? Because it's a ha'ara, it's only a ray. Because it's a way in which infinity is defined, even in the highest spiritual way. So over there's also rachamim, there's also compassion, there's also pain. K'mayim akasav, like we say in davening from Tehillim, this is the Halalukas, right? So David HaMelech says over there, and then Yahalalu es Shem Hashem, ki nizgov shmoi levadoi, hoidoi aleretz v'shemoy v'yaram karen lama. So literally everyone teaches Yahalalu, he speaks about the miracle of creation, right? He goes through all of nature, much of nature. You remember what I'm talking about, huh? Huh? He speaks of the sun and the moon and all the stars, yeah? And then he says, Taninim v'chaltoimus, he speaks about the crocodiles and the abyss, and fire and hail and snow, and vapor and winds and storms and mountains and mounds and trees and cedars, all that, all the animals and all the mammals, right? All the insects, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying it in English. Tzipper kanaf. Yeah. Bachurim v'gam b'sulis. Everybody. So everyone is Yahalalu es Shem Hashem. They praise the name of Hashem. Why? Ki nizgav shmoi levadai. Because his name is exalted. Nizgav means exalted, like aloof, alone. Hoidei aleretz v'shamayim. And his hoid is glory. Hoid v'hadar. His glory is on the earth and on the heaven. So the Alter Rebbe teaches Yahalalu es Shem Hashem also means Yahalalu only Shem Hashem. Part of Yahalalu is that you realize that it's only Shem Hashem. He's going to explain. Hoidei aleretz v'shamayim, eretz u'bchinas mamale, shamayim u'bchinas soivav. Einam ela ha'ara da ha'ara. V'hu b'chinas Shem, k'mayim yishtabach shim chalad malkeinu. Earth and heaven here don't only represent earth and heaven, but also on a spiritual level, earth represents what we call in Kabbalah and Chassidus mamale. That's the way the divine energy fills the worlds and is tailor-made for every creature. Soiviv represents Shamayim, which is like Soiviv, it encompasses. You look up at the heaven, it encompasses the planet. This represents the energy of Soiviv Kalam, which is the infinite energy. All of them are all Hoidai Alaretz V'Shamayim. His ray comes from Eretz Yisrael. And where does the Rei come from? Yahalalu is Shem Hashem Kinizko Shmai Levadei, Haidai of the name. And name itself is a ha'ara. So Shemayim and Aretz is a ha'ara de ha'ara. It's a ray of a ray, a glimmer of a glimmer. V'ubchinas Shem, this is all the name, K'mayim, that's what we say, in Yishtabach, Shim Chalad Malkeinu. Your name is praised forever. When you say a name, we all understand, a name is not the core of a person. When you're there for yourself, you don't need a name. The name is the way you're known by someone else. Somebody else wants to call you. How do you have access to me? So you call me by my name and I turn to you. Or if you talk about name in a more general form, somebody's name, Keser Shem Tov, the name is your reputation. In other words, the way you're perceived by someone else. So the definition of shame is not the essence. The definition of shame is the way you're experienced and perceived by the other. That's what shame is. Why is that so important here? Because Yahalelu, all these Yahalelus is Shem Hashem. It's the way the divine is manifested and relatable to the creatures of the world on different levels, but every state of consciousness, even the higher, it's all Yishtabach Shimcha. In davening, we keep on saying that. So the Alter Rebbe's medayik here, it's not just we praise your name, because that's what we do. It's a diuk here. It's dafka your name. In other words, all of our experience, even the deepest spiritual experience, is always limited to the name. And what's the name? The name is the way you allowed yourself to be experienced and accessed, which is already a very diminished version of the authentic truth. That's painful. That creates rachmanas. That's when you're sensitive to this. There's a longing. There's a midas harachma, a soul that's sensitive to this, and every soul is sensitive to this, even though it's very deep. And this doesn't look like this is not what bothers people. I have other problems. Yeah. This is my problem that it's only the name. But fakert, the soul, this pains the soul more than everything else, because this is a real pain. This is a real pain. Others think, okay, I have to deal with. In a way, this rachamim is deeper than another rachamim. This wound, this sense of you understand what I'm saying? Oh. You have to be very sensitive. It's very sensitive, this. So that's what he says. It's a ha'ara de ha'ara. Shame is a ha'ara. And haidai of the shame is a hallelujah, shame Hashem. And even Shema is nizgav levadai. Haidai, a ray of the name is aladit v'shemayim. K'mayim yishtabach shem chalad malkeinu. Al kein shayach aleim rachmanas. Asher echaykim ein me'atzmosi yizbarach. So therefore, on all of them you can experience rachmanas, empathy. Why? Because there's a distance from atzmosi yizbarach. It's not that the essence is not there. It's their experience, even of God, is a very compromised and diluted form, because in Atzmus itself is Einoid Mulvade, it's everything. So the very experience of Eretz V'Shamayim, even Mamali and Saiviv, you can have Rachamim. That's why Yaakov Avinu is Nachala B'li Mitzarim. Rachamim has no borders. It's a Mavriach Mina Kotza La Kotza. In the highest world and in the lowest place, there's always Rachamim. So you asked, how can you have in the highest place Rachamim? What's Rachamim? You have all the wealth and all the spiritual wealth in the world. What else do you want? Was noch willst du? Right? That's what Alter Rebbe used to say. I don't want you Gan Eden Atachten. I don't want you Gan Eden Elyon. That's what he's saying. I don't want you Mamali. I don't want you Soyu. I want you. That comes from that. There's a rachamim there. There's a sense of compassion, a sense of empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is simply being aware of the void, simply being aware of the dysfunctionality, simply being aware of the pain. That's what rachamim is. And that's why rachamim synthesizes chesed and gvur, Avram and Yitzchak. It says that Yaakov brought them together. Right, it's like a triangle, like a segel. V'yisim am segula is a segel. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Chesed is love. You love somebody. what do they say in English? Love can be blinding. It says in Mishlei, actually, Al kol p'shayim techasa ava. Love covers sins and mistakes. You know, when you're in love with somebody, you don't see a lot of things. People make decisions then, right? And 4 years later, the love diminishes, and suddenly, like, what did I do? Because it transports you to a different place. Now, it's very powerful. Love is beautiful. But love also has its limits. Then there's gvura. Gvura is the opposite. Gvura is, quid pro quo. You have to deserve. It's not coming from love. It's like you earn it. You own it. Right? Gvura is respect, actually. When I respect somebody, I respect their boundaries, and I respect the fact that you have to be independent. That's where you create distance. And we're talking about healthy gvura. You create healthy distance. It's respect for another person. It's a sense of yira. There's awe. It's like back off, create a boundary. Ava is, we're one, we become one, like water, we merge together. We spoke in the Mayim of Bahar, Mayim and Eish, right? Mayim connects and Eish separates. That's Avram and Yitzchak. Avram was the ultimate connector, and that's a very, very powerful force. But each of these has limits. Because they say, right now, I can't love. Or this situation or person is not lovable. They don't deserve it. Or I don't have it. Gvura has its limits. What is its limits? Gvura is demanding. Gvura is exacting. And they're opposites. They're different tenuas. Rachamim, Ava overlooks flaws. And Yira, Gvura, doesn't overlook anything. It's very, very honest. Right, Avram Avinu, he prayed for the people of Sodom. He knew that they were wicked, but that was Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu wanted Yishmael, Lu Yishmael Yechil v'nach. I don't need Yitzchak, let Yishmael be Yitzchak. He prayed that Yishmael should be the heir. Yitzchak Avinu was a carbon, Ayla Tmima. The Chiddush of Rachamim is, Rachamim doesn't go to one or the other. Rachamim doesn't have to overlook flaws. Rachamim is simply have empathy for the reality. On the contrary, Rachamim looks at the reality and simply react from a place of empathy and compassion. Sometimes the reaction may be gvura. Sometimes the reaction may be chesed, but that's why Rachamim synthesizes the two. So Rachamim has no borders, and here he adds, it can be in the lowest place and in the highest place. There's always Midas HaRachamim. Why is the Midas HaRachamim in the highest worlds? Because he says, because it's Shayach Aleim Rachmanas. Because there's a longing. The very fact that you're calling it a world and a high world, it's already Nizgav Shmoy Levad, it's Hoide Eleretz V'Shamayim. You can have Rachamim. It's Nachala B'li Mitzara. And this is the third theme of davening. The third theme of davening is Yaakov Avinu. So Tfilas Avos Tiknum. Davening was built from the Avos. There's the parts of davening that are built from Avram Avinu's midah of love. This describes the infinity of Hashem, the truth, all-pervasive reality of Hashem. And that's what I want to connect to. I don't want to connect to anything else, because everything else is just a falsehood or a fake veneer. There's Yitzchak Avinu, which represents the awe and the respect, accountability. Yeah. There's the infinity of Hashem, which is everything and life. And I want to be in touch with life. That's love. It's like gratitude for life. Part of tefillah is, it's so hard because we have so much stress and anxiety and we're so not regulated. Like all these things, like what are you talking about? You have to take people away for like a year and detox from everything, and then you could start talking this language. It's like very foreign language. Like I'm on my phone, there's things to do. Let's get through davening. There's a long day. Somebody got to support this family. But the truth is, it's not about not being responsible. It's about tuning into life. Right? Avram Avinu is the mid of gratitude. Gratitude, Ava. It's the sense of celebrating life. Ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. What's a celebrating life? It's the gratitude for every single moment of life, which is really a breath of infinity. That's what it is. And it's thankfulness for that. It's the privilege of being a channel for that. Yitzchak Avinu is what it demands from a person. The sense of accountability, seriousness, that's Gvura. That's Yitzchak. And then there's Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is empathy for what is. And wherever I am in the world, even if I'm in the highest world, there's empathy, there's Rachamim. And of course in the lowest place there's empathy, and everywhere in the middle. Empathy doesn't justify, it doesn't rationalize, it doesn't cover, it just looks at the reality the way it is. And can you feel rachamim for the pain, for the void? And it doesn't argue with gvura, it doesn't argue with chesed. Instead, that's why it doesn't compete. That's the midah of Yaakov. Gvura argues with chesed. Chesed argues with gvura. Rachamim doesn't argue. Rachamim says, I hear, I know, I'm not. Can you have empathy for that? Can you just have empathy? It's a different tenuah. It's not so easy, by the way. It's not so easy because it's suspending judgment. We like to judge right away, give a label, even in ourselves. It's very hard to have empathy on yourself because there's judgment. I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm a failure, I'm not living up to my potential. Why? Rachamim is suspend judgment. Just look at the reality and experience. And the same is true. Experience what is. And as we'll see, it opens up things in a very deep way. Yeah.
What's the with Esau? Because he was supposed to be one of the others, right? Was there a fourth thing where him and Yaakov were supposed to both do the same thing? What was it about what Esau was supposed to do?
Well, it says that Yishmael and Esau were both reflections of their fathers. Yishmael is midas hachesed, and Esau is gvura. But the difference was, Yishmael's chesed became very, very selfish and narcissistic. And Esau's gvura became very cruel. In other words, they both originated in Avram and Yitzchak. Yishmael has this yodei bakol v'yad kol boy. He had this sense of social, he was a social butterfly. Pera Adam, he was hospitable, like his father. He had a lot of qualities like his father. He wasn't reserved and introverted like Yitzchak. He was out there, but it was different. Avram Avinu's kindness was rooted in oneness, in humility, in bittul. And Yishmael's kindness is rooted in narcissism, or insanity and in craziness and running away and showing off. It's a different type of kindness. You know what I mean? The same is true with Esav. Esav had the strength of Yitzchak, but Yitzchak's gvura was directed towards challenging himself. And Esav's gvura was directed towards cruelty. He became a cruel person. So they had that energy, but the energy, it says the Gemara, Avram yotze b'menu Yishmael. Yitzchak yotze b'menu Esav. So the Rebbe explains in a Maimer, Yishmael came from Avram, but he left, yotze. And Yitzchak yotze b'menu Esav. Yaakov mitasi shleima. Yaakov kept all the children in Klal Yisrael. Why? Avram couldn't do it. Yaakov knew how to be Mekarev, and Avram didn't know how to be Mekarev. If Yaakov did it, Avram could have done it, and Yitzchak could have done it. They tried. Yitzchak was very nice to Esav. Avram was very nice to Yishmael. It says in Pirkei Rebbe, even that when Hashem told him to send him away, he would go visit him. You know that? It says in Pirkei Rebbe, he went to visit him a few times. And in fact, it says Yishmael did tshuva. By the funeral of Avram, it says who buried him? Yitzchak and Yishmael. So Rashi says it should have said Yishmael and Yitzchak. Yishmael was older, 13 years older. The pshat is Yishmael told Yitzchak, you go ahead. At that moment, Yishmael, at the funeral of Avram Avinu, he said, Yitzchak, you're dad's boy, You're the one who's carrying Avram Avinu's legacy, you go ahead of me. So he gave preference to Yitzchak at the funeral. It says in Chumash, Yitzchak v'Yishmael banav in Parshas Chaim. So Rashi says melamed that Yishmael also tshuva. How did he do tshuva? He got thrown out of his father's house. You don't see kids that get thrown out do tshuva so fast. The answer is Avram Avinu chased him. Avram Avinu never stopped visiting him. It's a whole story in Pirkei Rebbe Lezer. It says he came home and his wife told him, he had a wife Fatima. In Islam, Fatima is a very, I don't know if you know the history, but so Yishmael's wife was Fatima, and she described him when he came home, who came to visit. He said, that's my father, he still loves me. What's my point here? That before you get to Yaakov, you first have to have Avram and Yitzchak. But Avram and Yitzchak couldn't reach all of their children. Rachamim reaches everybody. You understand? Rachamim reaches every child. That's what the Alter Rebbe is saying here. Rachamim is nachala b'li mitzarim. Because of the nature of compassion, there's no space. You can't be too low and you can't be too high or anyone in the middle that you don't experience, you don't become a recipient of Rachamim. Because rachamim is simply acknowledging with empathy, with heart, with emotion, the nature of the reality and the pain involved in this reality. And even the highest world, there's longing, there's pain, there's a void. It's hoydei eretz v'shamayim. And the higher you are, in many ways, the more rachamim you need, because you're more sensitive, right? More sensitive people, he's in a high level, what does he need rachamim? Fakert. The Maggid once said, the Alter Rebbe brings Likkutei Torah, that the Maggid said that the machshavas zaros of tzaddikim create much more damage than the averis of rishayim. The negative actions of rishayim don't create as much damage as the alien thoughts of tzaddikim, even though it's only a thought. Why? Because when you're plugged in, if your plug is channeling all the energy from Niagara Falls that's giving electricity to the United States of America, right? Pulling out that plug a little bit is going to create much more darkness. I have a local plug, in my house. Fine, my house is going to have a blackout. The whole New York, the whole America will have a blackout. The machshava zara of a tzaddik, you're plugged into a very deep place. Like the back end of the program, the back end of the computer, the program code. The more sensitive you are, the more even a small thing becomes a distortion. Man de machve b'mocha kame malka. You toifus what I'm saying. So the racham is even deeper. So mitzad that, Yaakov reaches all of his children. Rachamim is not justification. Rachamim is to look at the reality, but don't blink. Don't avert your gaze. Don't numb it with other explanations. And don't judge it. Just be present in the pain, literally embracing it. It's like a mother who sees her child suffering, or a baby that falls and hurts. You don't start explaining to the baby the science of why he or she is feeling pain. You don't criticize the baby for feeling pain. You don't say, oh, it's not painful because mommy is here. You don't do these things. When we become adults, we all do it. It's your fault. Let me explain to you what it is. You shouldn't cry. That's not right. Rachamim is, I'm here with you. That's it. I'm here with you. That's more powerful than everything. You know that. MS? Huh? Justify it. It's not so painful. Don't be such a baby. Grow up. You deserve it. It'll make you strong. It's right away with judgment, right away with explanations. Can you just be quiet and just hold the baby? You hold it. That's it. What's the comfort? What's the comfort? Well, tell me something. What are you doing? Well, by holding me, you fixed my finger? Of course, if you need a Band-Aid, you have to get a Band-Aid. If you need stitches, obviously you need stitches. I'm not. The answer to that is because this is very, very, it's very sensitive and it's very deep. There's 2 points here. Right now we'll make 1 point. Darkness and pain are dark and painful, but they're not dangerous. Pain, somebody once said, pain is painful, but it's not dangerous. Every reality has the capacity to heal. Every reality has in it the divine. Hashem is there, Einaid Mulvada. If Hashem is there, even the greatest place of darkness and pain, it's painful, but it's not lost. What did David HaMelech say in Tehillim? I go to heaven, you're there. I go to the abyss, it's you. You're not afraid of darkness. So when we actually allow ourselves and others to look at the reality the way it is, without flinching, without blinking, without averting the gaze, without manipulating it, the reality itself has within it sparks of healing. And that's what Rachamim helps us tune into. It helps us tune into the reality itself. And that reality itself, without anything else, if you just stay with it, it opens up and it shows its true colors. And at its core, there is healing there. At its core, there is love there, there's presence there, there's purpose there, there's meaning there, there's connection there. Or in simple words, God is there. What I often do is, it's too painful, so what do? I cover it up. I numb it. I look away. I give judgment to it. You know what happens? I think that way I'm going to be better off. Actually, what I do is I dismiss and deny myself the opportunity to tune into the energy that exists in that experience itself. And God is there. And when I cover it up or I run away from it, I deny myself connection with reality, which is connection with myself. That's the power of Rachamim. You understand? No. It's not love. Sometimes you're dealing with a very, very, with a very difficult situation. There's nothing to say. You don't love it. Nobody loves it. It's simply not turning my eyes away. It's simply looking at it with a sense of empathy. Like he says, Shayach aleim rachmanas, rechoikem me'atzmusi yisbarach. It's hard. Our brain right away has judgment, right away. It's your fault. Oh, don't take it so seriously. It happens fast. Oh, it's not such a big deal, you crybaby. Every time somebody called you a crybaby when you're 4 years old, now it's happening when you're 60, when you're 40, when you're 50. Oh, it's not such a big deal. Oh yeah, it's actually a very big deal. We always knew that your life is a curse. You see, even it's a judgment. Your life is a curse, you're a loser, you're a winner. Oh, it's not a big deal, you have so many good things going on. Oh, stop complaining. I'm just how the brain goes. Oh, you think you have it the worst? Okay, and at this point, Baruch Hashem, you got already a clip on WhatsApp, so you could look at the clip and you're done. They all have the common denominator. They take me away from the reality itself. Oh, and you think the whole world revolves around your problems? Oh, yeah, let's sit and wallow in your issues. Okay, yeah. The whole world revolves around you. Stop being such a narcissist. Whatever, all these words, yeah, you're selfish, you're not selfish, you're too selfless, you're too selfish, you're feeling too much, you're not feeling anything. It all takes me away from Rachamim. Rachamim is simply to tune in to the reality the way it is with an open heart and without any opinion, just what is. With yourself, and then you can do it with others. If you can't do it with yourself, you can do it with others. And trust me, this is a very hard midah. It's not an easy midah. But in this process, emotional miracles happen. Emotional healing happens. Because actually, the light that's in this situation gets to come out. You know, I once said you have a peach. A peach, you ever tried to break the pit in the peach? You can't. It's one of the hardest materials on the planet. You know that? Even a hammer. You can practice. Take a hammer and try breaking open the pit in the peach. It's very, very tough. And don't try doing it with your teeth, because your teeth will lose. The peach will not lose. Your teeth will lose that wrestling match. It's one of the hardest, maybe the hardest, I have to look, but I think it's one of the hardest, or maybe the hardest material on the planet. You wouldn't think a peach has that. Peach is so soft and juicy. But not the pit. Don't start up with the pit. Why did nature make it that way? Why did God make it that way? Because in the pit, you have the seeds. And every fruit knows that whatever happens to me, I don't care, but those seeds have to be protected, because that's the future generations. Like we learned in the previous Maimon Likkutei Bahar. So the pit protects the seeds, because that's the future. And the pit will not allow you to have access to the seeds. You know when the pit opens up? Only in one place in the world. You know where? Yeah, when you put it in the earth. The earth doesn't bring hammers, and doesn't bring bombs, and doesn't bring grenades, and doesn't bring machetes or axes. They put it in the earth, and earth, the soil, has nutrients and pashat begashmis physically. It opens the pit, the seeds fall into the earth, so there could be a new peach tree. So you take this pit, I'm gonna break you, I'll show you, boom, 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 boom. And what happens? The pit gets tougher. You know, when we do this with kids or with teenagers, I'll show you. I was once in school, I heard a teacher tell one of the kids when I was a kid, he said, I'm going to give you a fras this month, you'll say Kiddush Levana on the moon. Or at least you'll see the moon in the middle of the day. I'll brech on this pit, you're going to be tough, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm smarter than you. And what happens? The pit gets stronger. You put it into the right environment, into the earth, and it just opens up. You don't have to fight, it opens up, and the seeds come out. That's the power of Midas HaRachamim. Rachamim doesn't, I don't have solutions. But you know who has solutions? You have solutions. You know how I know you have solutions? Because you're in this situation. Your soul knows why it's in this situation. You have all the solutions. David HaMelech says, Gam ki elech begeitz ha'mavis lo ira ki ato imodi. He didn't say it's good, it's geschmack. What does it mean God is with me? Explain it in English. God is with me means that this reality that I'm in, it's not hopeless and it's not meaningless. It's painful, it's dark, but it's not dangerous. Pain is pain, not danger. And compassion is just let it be. And from letting it be with sensitivity, there'll be love too. It says, Yaakov Shapadas Avram. Yaakov liberates Avram. Because compassion frees up love. Love can be in jail. We're scared of love. Compassion frees up love. So now he explains this more. V'hinei, and the Yetoifas Dinyan. So this is the third part of davening, Rachamim. So it's fascinating. Tfilas avos tiknum. Davening is a reflection of Ava, Gvura, Yira, and Rachamim. There's the fact that the whole world is just a miracle every single moment, a miracle of infinity, and you gotta love it. There's the element of accountability, showing up. That's Yitzchak Avinu. It's not that God is love, 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 love. Now let me go eat my potato chips. Or distract myself. No, there's a relationship. That's what Gvura means, is a relationship. Right? A child you love. Once the child grows older, there's also discipline. There's a relationship. You're not a nobody. I don't have to take care of you. That's not respectful. You don't tell your 20-year-old kid, sleep till 6 in the evening because I'm going to take care of you till you're 75. That's not respectful to a person. No, I believe in you. Show up. That's Gvura. You understand? That's the second part of davening. And the third element of davening is Rachamim, compassion. There's pain. Yeah.
What's the, you said the Zohar says that it's not just a line, it's a circle. What does that mean?
No, not a circle. The Zohar says it's like a triangle. Chesed on the right, Gvura on the left, and Rachamim is the synthesizer, like a segel.
We see that one was on top, one was on bottom, and Rachamim.
No, Chesed on the right, Gvura like this, 2 dots, and on the bottom in the middle, right, on an angle, it synthesizes the two. An upside down triangle. You understand? Not a triangle with the point on top. The 2 on top and the point on the bottom, it brings them together. In the Nekudas, it's called segel. You have a point and another point. Ve'yisim am segula is segel. That's Tiferes. Tiferes means beauty. Why? Because beauty is always symphony, harmony, synthesis. Right? A beautiful picture, it's not one dimension. There's a combination, beautiful song, a beautiful symphony. It's many vocalists and musicians and instruments brought together. You understand? A beautiful painting, a beautiful home. There's symmetry. You say it's a beautiful body, what does it mean a beautiful body? What makes something beautiful? Tiferes. There's symmetry between opposing forces that come together in this great form. Whether it's a body, whether it's a house, whether it's a picture, whether it's a choir. You understand? That's Tiferes. Tiferes doesn't get stuck in anything. Tiferes could look at the chesed. He doesn't deserve to be loved. Wow, that's painful. I'm not arguing. No, he does deserve to be loved. He should be punished. No, love him. I'm not arguing. He doesn't deserve. I hear. Yeah, it's painful. He should be punished. Yeah, that's painful. People respond to Rachmim in a different way. We learned Shabbos, a maimah from Shir HaShirim, Likkutei Torah Shir HaShirim, L'reach shmonecha toiv malkein alamis hayevucha. So the Rebbe says there that sometimes people become so achzarim, they become like indifferent, their hearts close up. Their way of survival is they become like cold and tough and rough and indifferent. It's a survival mechanism. The Alter Rebbe says in that maimah, the only thing that can save them is midas harachamim. It literally like opens up the pit. They become like a pit of a peach. It's a way of survival. Like I don't feel it, and they become like achzarim, like you become cruel. Cruel in the sense of like, I can't afford to feel. There's so much pain there. Rachamim gives tribute to the pain. If you want to put it in different words, you could say this. The reason when I first experienced my pain, I closed up my heart and I numbed it, and I went to other methods to survive, is because there was nobody there with me to help me feel the pain. There was nobody there with Midas HaRachama. And that's the incredible insight here. You understand? That's why I couldn't stay with it, because I was embarrassed with it. So what did I do? I closed it up, I put a lid, I locked it, I threw away the keys, and I became whatever I became. Everybody becomes... We develop substitutes for it. It's known that people who went through as kids crazy experiences, there was one person in their life that they could connect to in that pain without secrecy, and they were there for them. It's usually a completely different experience. Why? Because we have the capacity to process things. The dysfunctionality is not because of what happened to me. Dysfunctionality is how I interpreted it. I'm a loser, I'm a nobody, I'm a sickness, I'm evil, I'm bacteria, I'm vermin to society, I'm an embarrassment for eternity. Mashiach has not come because of me. With all that comes with that. That's where the dysfunction, and now that's hard to live with. So now I become who I become. If there was Rahmanis right in the beginning, we could stay with it. That's the power of it.
How do you get into that state of mind?
Compassion. It's a muscle, you have to exercise it. It's like every muscle. We exercise it. You use it or you lose it. Rachamim is an exercise, but it's a counterintuitive exercise. It looks simple. You have Rachmanis. Yeah, if I see somebody who's homeless and doesn't have clothes and hasn't eaten 3 days, I have Rachmanis. Why shouldn't I have Rachmanis? I'll give him $5 or tell him to go get a soup. You understand? That's easy Rachmanis. The harder Rachmanis is, get your life together, you loser. And it's with ourselves. And he says like this: when a person contemplates this Rachmanas, yagdil midoisav hatoivus l'Hashem v'yisa oisam l'Hashem k'maimer hakasav elecha Hashem nafshi yesa. This Rachmanas, what it does is yagdil midoisav hatoivus l'Hashem. This grows a person's good midas and brings them to the divine. He lifts them up back, like the pasuk says in Tehillim. We say it in davening. Nusach Harizal David Elecha Hashem Nafshi Esa. This sense of Rachmanis allows the midas toivas to grow, and the midas go. This is the hiluch. This is the movement where the midas come back to God. And he explains, Ki ha'avis hem hanikroyim royim. The avis are called shepherds. What's the role of a shepherd? To make sure that the sheep, the flock, get food and get water and get the right nutrition and the right oxygen and the right air, the environment, so they can grow. So why are the avos called royim? The Gemara says in Sukkah that we have 7 shepherds, the 7 ushpizin of Sukkahs, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, etc. They use the 7 shepherds that give parnasa, they sustain and they give energy and life to the holy sheep, tzoin kachim. The Jewish people are called tzoin kadashim, so they can grow. La loichul is gadol miyom liyom. So the tefillah, he said, is the time when the neshama grows. Because tefillah is made from the avos. The avos are the shepherds. What do shepherds do? They feed the sheep. So that's what tefillah does. V'ikir tzar gidol bonam hoyelele Yaakov. Midas rachmanis, who are megadlis midas Hashem yisbarach. The Gemara says in Shabbos daf Peites that Avram and Yitzchak didn't have so much tzar gidol bonam. They didn't have the pain of raising children. Avram Avinu didn't have a child for most of his life. He had a different pain. Till he was 99 to 100. And then he had a son, Avram Avinu. And before that he had one son, Yishmael. Yitzchak had Yaakov and Esav. But Yaakov Avinu, Sigaven Lebedik. Between the 12 boys and Dinah, and there's a shita in Chazal that there were also 12 girls. Because it says when Yosef was disappeared, that all Yaakov's sons and daughters came to comfort him. So you have to know if it's the daughters-in-law, if it's the daughter. Yaakov had a big family. Either he had 12 with a daughter is 13, or another 12 girls, another 11 girls. So you're talking about 24. So a big family. And we know these kids were not, passive, silent kids who were just in yeshiva quiet all day. From Reuven to Shimon to Levi to Yehuda, everybody, Yosef, everyone was another parsha. So the Gemara says in Shabbos, Tsar Gidul Bonim, this is Yaakov, he gets credit. The pain of raising children. So the Alter Rebbe says there's a spiritual type here. Who really, the pain of raising children is also the reward of raising children. It's the work that goes into raising children. Who really raises children? Yaakov Avinu. And there's always tsar. There's pain in that, and that's midas harachama. Midas rachmanis who are magdalas midas l'Hashem yisbarach. Midas are called children. Who raises children more than Avram and Yitzchak? Yaakov Avinu. Midas harachama. Who are megadalas midas l'Hashem yisbarach. There's nothing that heals your midas, that heals your emotions, that heals your triggers, your characteristics. You hear what he's saying? Like midas harachamim. Tsar gidul bonim is much more in Yaakov than Avram and Yitzchak. They also raised children. Avram raised a beautiful child. Yitzchak raised a beautiful child. But Yaakov, first of all, he got all the children. Everybody stayed. Nobody left. Mitosei Shleima, the Gemara says in Psachim. Mitosei Shleima is only Yaakov. And also Pashad much more. And divergent and so many different types. And remember, there was a war in the family. It wasn't simple. The brothers sold Yosef. It's not like it was a perfect family, like our families here in Monsey. Perfect families. All the Shadchanim are running. Nobody was running. It wasn't so simple. Yehuda had to go find a shidduch. It wasn't Pashad. Yosef was kidnapped by his own brothers, sold. So there was a tsar, Gidul Bonim. Rachel died. I mean, it was challenging. My point spiritually too. It's not so. It was a lot going on, and there was a lot of pain. And Yaakov kept his family together, and ultimately they all reunited. Midas harachamim. That's the power of rachamim. It's megadol. So there's no hiluch for the neshama and tefillah, like by tefillah Avram, Yitzchak, and mainly Yaakov. Valkein nemer. On this it says, the pasuk says in Yeshaya. This is the haftarah of Nachamu Ami. Shabbos Nachmu Yeshaya Perek Mem. Kiroya edro yira, like a shepherd who shepherds his flock, his edroi, his group of animals. Biziroya yikabetz tloyim. He's talking what a shepherd is. With his arm he gathers the sheep. Ubecheiko yisa, and in his bosom he carries them. Olois yenahel, he leads the babies, the infants. The baby sheep need to be taken care of. That's what a shepherd is. So the Alter Rebbe says, this is what it looks like. This is what a roya is. Araya, you shepherd the flock. You gather the tloyim with your arms, and then the main thing is becheka yisa. And the diyuk is v'hine becheka yisa. In your bosom you lift them up. Yisom l'Hashem, k'maimir ha'kosav elecha Hashem nafshi yasa. The real shepherd lifts up the sheep. What are we talking here? Elecha Hashem nafshi yasa. To lift up one's sheep. The royim, the shepherds, lift up the Jewish people. Every person lifts up their children, their sheep, their midas. And who does this more than everyone? Tsar Gidol Bonim was Yaakov Avinu. He raised most of the children, and it came through Tsar, which always triggers Rachamim. Rachamim is a response to pain. Tsar. Yaakov Avinu didn't say, I don't have pain. He was present with that, and he opened it up. So what was Alter Rebbe saying here? That there's nothing like Rachamim to create emotional healing. Try it out, you'll see. But it's hard. I'll tell you why. There's always going to be something to take you away from the Rachamim. Oh, you're guilty. Don't do you're guilty, okay? You see, Rachamim does, and you have to listen to that and say, okay, I hear. It's a perspective. You can have Rachamim on that too. We're afraid of Rachamim because we're afraid that it absolves us and others from accountability. But the truth is it helps you be much more accountable. You know why? Because you could show up with your whole heart. Without that, my accountability comes with a sense of duty, but a sense of gevura, and not with an open heart. So I do it with a sense of pressure and anxiety, because I have to get rid of this guilt and this pain. And Rachamim is just, it opens everything. It's like shines the sun on everything. And then the pit can just open up in the earth and trees can grow. I like that mashal with the pit. Tsar Gidol Bana. The Alter Rebbe says here that there's nothing that brings the midas back to Hashem like midas harachamim. And do you understand why? It's a fascinating idea. You would think, what would help your midas tovus? What would rise your midas tovus versus midas rise? Not rachamim, abisal musar. Don't be cruel, don't be selfish, don't be a Rasha Gomer, don't be an Achzer, don't be a Balgaiva. Yeah? A little more amunah, what's with your fear? Why are you overwhelmed? Why are you anxious? A little musar. A lot of musar. But he doesn't say that. He says, yeah, and then midas harachim is more than anything else. The answer to this is, very bekitzer, he speaks that Rachamim goes from the highest place to the lowest place. Midas Rachamim has two qualities to it. This is really, really amazing. What's Midas Rachamim? How do you have empathy for something? You only have empathy when you see the pain. You only could feel the pain when you see what could have been. Pain is only because, why is it painful? Right? When somebody throws, the tissue box, and throws this in the garbage or recycling, we don't feel empathy for it. Why? Not because we're cruel people. Because what do you want should happen to the cardboard? I mean, this is what's supposed to happen. Pain is because of what could have been, what should have been. It's feeling that something is wrong, right? My finger hurts. What hurts? Because there's something wrong. There's a scratch, there's a cut, yeah, there's pain. There's a headache, right? Pain is always, something is off, something physically and spiritually and emotionally. Something is misaligned, right? I'm pained because my relationship is damaged. My child is struggling, my spouse is struggling, my sister is struggling, my friend is struggling. There's a struggle. There's loss, there's grief. There's always a certain reality that's compromised, that's hurt. So you have to understand that behind pain, there's always a vision of greatness. And because of that, Rachamim opens you up to that greatness. They tell a story, I think I saw this story once, maybe from Rabbi Adin Evan Yisrael, but there's a very geschmack story. There was a storm, a huge storm, and after storms, the nests of birds on trees often get destroyed, and the young die or the eggs die. And there was a farmer who was looking after the storm, and he saw that an eagle's nest was destroyed in the storm, but one egg still seemed intact. So he was a chicken farmer, so he took this egg and he put it in the farm, and the chickens thought this is a chicken egg, so the chickens sat on the egg, and indeed, in the right time, b'shatayvo mutzlachas, the chick emerged from the egg. He thought it was a chicken, everybody else thought it was a chicken, but it was really an eagle. But the eagle was raised with chickens and grew up with chickens and learned with chickens and did olive bays with chickens and ate breakfast and supper with chickens. So the eagle also thought she was a chicken. And so the eagle walked around, and even though his body became bigger and bigger, fine, he was a bigger chicken. There's bigger chickens, you gotta say there's big chickens. But what do you do all day like chickens? Their head is always down looking for another morsel of food, another crumb, another grain, another, you know what chickens do? Kukurikoo, kukurikoo, kukurikoo. You have chickens sometimes, right? And this eagle, who was really a chicken in his own mind, grew very, very old and was there with the chickens, and usually his head was down on the ground. But you all know the end of the story. One day, the chickens were out there on a beautiful day, and an eagle, a majestic eagle, was soaring, was flying high, high in the sky. And the chickens were busy looking for another crumb. But this old chicken, who was bigger than all the other chickens, looked up and saw this majestic eagle and gave a krecht, gave a sigh, and said, I wish I was an eagle. No chicken ever made that prayer. You know why? Because they're chickens. It's the eagle who thought he was a chicken and lived as a chicken and was imprisoned in the environment of a chicken who could feel that pain. That's the Nakuda here. And that's the power of Rachamim. There's no Rachamim if you don't understand, if you're not sensitive to what should have been. You're an eagle, you're not a chicken, and that's why you're sighing. If you were broken at your core, why are you sighing? Take this mic and break it. I'm not going to do it at the moment to illustrate, okay? Break it. It's not going to go to therapy 20 years later and say, Rabbi, why broke me Chaf Ches Iyar in the morning and I still can't recover? You know why? Because it's broken, it's destroyed. If all we are is, we're just machines, you break the machine, that's it. You're broken. Why is there a part in us that protests the brokenness and is crying 30 years later? Because you're not a machine, because you're an eagle. You're not, I'm a chicken. No, you're an eagle. Rachamim opens us up to who we are. Not by explanations, just the feeling, the tsar, the empathy, the feeling, that empathy right away. We don't even realize it. Right away it's telling you, this is not me. I'm not a chicken. Of course I want to be an eagle. You know what? Let me start flying. Why should I be a prisoner? All of our, what's midas rayas? All of our midas rayas are survival mechanisms because I think I'm a chicken. And if I'm going to start flying, you know what's going to happen to me? Start flying, try it out. You'll break your arms, you'll break your legs, and they'll call the Chevra Kadisha. Of course you should be a chicken. Be safe and be a chicken. All midas rayas are survival mechanisms. Empathy for what's happening simply tells me you're not a chicken, you're an eagle. I don't know it yet, so why do I have to live like this? I don't have to live here. I could live in a different place. That's why Rachamim opens up the midas. Elech Hashem nafshi esa. It lifts you up. How does it lift you up? How does Rachamim lift you up? Because the very experience of empathy says, oh wow, there's an eye that's observing the pain. In other words, you're not the pain. You're deeper, you're greater. The chicken wouldn't even know there's an eagle and there's a wish to be an eagle. It's not part of his equation. It's not part of his DNA. Your teuf is dinyan. Verstehst? That's Rachamim. So Rachamim is always a link with your true potential. That's what Rachamim is always. That's why when I hold that baby or I look at that person and I say it's painful, and I mean it, there's nothing more healing. Because you know what I did? I just connected him or her with their truth. Just the acknowledgement of the pain connected them with their truth. And it really shows them who they are. This is in addition to what I explained before, another point. one is a high, is Lamaila, now is Lamata Mata, because Racham goes, is that when we just sit with it, we see what is, it has inside of it what it needs to be able to open up. So that's the union of tefillah. So the time when the neshama moves the most is tefillah, through Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, who are the shepherds that feed the flock to grow, which is movement, hiluch, especially Yaakov, which is midas harachama. So when we say in davening, B'rachamecha harabim rachem aleinu, right? After Baruch Hu, or in Avas Olam, there's a whole piece of Vinu of Harachamon Hamerachem Rachem Na Aleinu V'sein B'libeinu Bina. What's this? This is a very, very, very emotional experience. It's the ability to have empathy and compassion for everything, and then V'sein B'libeinu Bina Lahavin or Lahaskel. And as it says, that means Lahavin Davar Mitoich Davar. That's the growth. Okay, so now let's see the last piece. Now we'll go back to the question, why is Hashem begging? If only. And they say, it doesn't mean if, it means if only, right? In the first shir. Im loshen tachanunim. Pirush, halavai sheyiyah halichas ha'adam betfila niskana lanu manche gnesses hagdoila ve'en tzarech lechapes halichas acheres ki hi toiver shebekulon v'halavai sheyuspak la. Now the Rebbe now says something it's not usual for him to say in my modem. What's Bechkosei Telechu? We explained Bechkosei is Chakika. Telechu is the movement of the soul, because really it comes from the Machshavei law, from infinity. So he's saying, I wish, halavai, the halichas on the movement of the soul is going to be through the tefillah, which was given to us by Anshe Knesses Agdoila based on the three Avos, and not to look for other ways of halicha, because this is the best. And halavai, you would even suck out the marrow from what's halavai sheyusbaklam. Halavai, even this would be enough. In other words, halavai sheyusbaklam. Halavai, you'll be able to find everything that's here, because even here we can only scratch the surface and not search in other places. It's like I'm searching somewhere else. I didn't even finish. Yeah, might have. What's the Alter Rebbe saying here? V'hainu b'chukosei telechu heim b'chines avos asher be'eved hanar yashvu avosechem b'chines machshavei lo oisis chakukim v'hoyu lachadim mamash b'mekoyden u'mekoyman ha-chakukim sham. Valkein behem yachal adam lavi lebchinas hiluch kishamu makam hiluch lamayla mayla. I wish b'chukosei telechu. What's b'chukosei telechu? We said b'chukosei is chakika, engraved. This represents the avos who come from the other side of the river. Remember, be'ever anar. Avram comes from the other side of the river. Yaakov went back to the other side of the river. Right? He ran away from Eretz Yisrael. He went back to Ever anar. It represents machshavei law, engraved letters, where the letters are completely one with their source from which they're engraved. There's no separation, like in written letters. That's the avos. In b'chukosei telechu, if only your telechu, your growth, will be through b'chukosei, through the oisis hachakika, through the avos who come me'ever anar from that chakika. Because that's how you'll have hiluch, because that's the way you'll be able to grow lamayla mayla. You understand what he's saying here? What's the big halavai? What's the big halavai? It's very easy to lose what he's saying here. Mm-hmm. This is one of the most relevant halavais. One of the biggest mistakes of people, and this is the halavai, is if Judaism was all about structure, definitions, finiteness, then I understand there's a way to do it, right? There's a program. The moment you start touching on Ein Sof, on infinity, you're telling me that oisius can be the most deceiving things because they create finiteness. So if we're talking about the source of infinity, what's the path to get there? You would say the path to get there is endless. What's the path to real enlightenment? Institutionalized religion is the greatest danger. Institutionalized religion is everything is finite and fixed and so just do what your father did and what your Zayda did and what your Baba does. But the moment we're now talking about Ein Sof, so if you're talking about Ein Sof, this is how the Tzemach Tzedek has a mimer explaining the mimer of his grandfather. This is what he says. That since Hashem is beyond spheres, and the spheres are all about Oisis HaChakika, not Oisis HaKsiva, so you would think, the Tzemach Tzedek says, you would think, Shagama Yidei Halichois V'uvdois Acheres Yuchalalos. Your way up can also be through different paths. What's Bechkosei Telechu? Why are you being so dogmatic? Don't be dogmatic. The path to infinity should be infinite. The therapist I know, so he told me that he has a Buddhist friend. He's a therapist here in Monsey. He's a Buddhist friend, a Jewish guy, very spiritual. He has a wife and 5 children, so he sat down with them. And he said that recently he went on a journey and he experienced oneness with his soul. And his soul told him he has to get divorced and leave his children because he needs to find himself. And he can't do this with his family. You understand? And in his own mind, this is the key of enlightenment. You have 5 kids. And they're not being abused in this marriage. This is what Alter Rebbe is saying. Halavai im. It's a very, very... When we're going, this is a struggle that a lot of younger light have today, because everyone is into now, emotional healing and spiritual journeys, and so many people are traumatized from their religious education, and sometimes for good reason, right? So that's what Alter Rebbe is addressing now. This Nikuda. As long as you're living in a world, where it's structure, fine. The moment you realize that God doesn't have a structure, so who created the structure? The guy running the community? Why? Because he wanted control? So now I'm going to become a victim of that. So right away you let go. Once you let go, I'm now looking for infinity. What does infinity look like? It doesn't look like anything. So it could look like anything. So now you decided Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv. Why? So we can control the community and have everybody together, but Mincha with bleachers. What do you call it? Parences? Whatever, you understand the concept. I have nothing against bleachers. But that concept. That's the Nekuda here. So in this journey, you have to know that you're getting really closer to yourself, not further from yourself. There's a chisaron in structure, but there's also a maila in structure. I'm following a structure. The chisaron is I'm following your structure. So now I want to discover my true self, my infinite self. So he says, Halavayim Bechkosei Telechu. The Avos were rooted in the Ein Sof. Bechkosei Telechu. That's what he says. Halichas adam betfila niskanal on a manchek. Ein sarich lachapes halichas acheres. Yeah, you need to find infinity. You need to go beyond dogma and beyond lies and beyond stupidity and beyond control games, etc. But to be really liberated from that, there could be new traps. And the new trap says, I have to get divorced and leave my 5 kids because my soul said you have to spend time with yourself. But if he would have a Shulchan Aruch, he would know you don't let go of your wife and 5 kids. You're responsible for your children. But I need to find God. I need to find my soul. You will not find God by running away to New Zealand and biking for the next 8 years. Because when you're going to look at yourself in the mirror in 10 years, you will never be able to forgive yourself for that. You have to know who you really are. That's the idea. Who you really, really, really are. In other words, to come to Ein Sof, it's not a Hefgewelt Ein Sof. Okay, I decided now I have to be on weed for the rest of my life because that's how I touch Ein Sof. You understand? Ein Sof could become Hefker also. Hefker, I want to get divorced. Why not? Well, me. I have to be me. I'm not anymore in structures. See, that's the emeskite of Chassidus. That's the emeskite of this Maimer. We know about Ein Sof. Nobody will tell you more about Ein Sof than the Alter Rebbe. He knows about no structures. The whole Maimer is about, I'm not caught up in your Isis. But Oisius Achkika means that the Oisius are Oisius that become manifestations of infinity. And that's the Chiddush of the Avos. That was the path of the Avos. That's what he's saying. Be'evid anar yashvu Oisius Chakuk, going to be really, that this is going to be the Hiluch. Shamu makam hiluch l'mayla mayla. You want to get closer to your true essence, not further from your true essence. It's easy to destroy structures. What are you going to substitute them with? I'm asking you. You're going to substitute them with other people's structures, with people who hate religion. Well, Grace and Gedula, so you became an enlightened person. You understand what I'm saying? You let go one prison and you went to somebody else's prison. Okay, it's a prison that instead of long payas, they have ponytails. Fine. Instead of wearing black, what am I wearing? Blue or this. Fine, so you're wearing pink. Okay, you think there's no prison there? Instead of having Hagbolus and intimacy, you have no Hagbolus and intimacy. So there's no Shabbos, there's no Yom Tov. So you don't put on tefillah. So what now happens in a year? What happens in 2 years? What happens in 3 years? This is the trap. It's unbelievable that Alter Rebbe says this. That's what Trump says, This is he's halavai. Halavai, that when you understand this Nekud, it should be Bechkosei Teilechu. You want Teilechu. I know you don't want to stay stuck. You don't even want to be a malach. You want to be a neshama. You want to go back to infinity. So do it b'chukayse through the Oisius Achkika of the Avos be'ever anar yashva v'seichem, and that's what tefillah represents. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Mincha is boring. You know what a mincha is? Mincha is boring. You ever daven mincha? Ma'ariv is boring. Shachris is boring. You ever daven shachris? Fine. So learn how to daven shachris. I have no problem. I understand you never daven. So learn how to daven. Learn how to daven. You understand? Halavai sheyaspiklam. Learn how to daven. I have to go search. Did you eat all the food that you have in the house? The herst, a reiche Wort, huh? Learn how to daven. You know what a mincha is? Baruch atah Hashem. You have experienced God? Find out. If there's nothing here, fine, you'll go there. Find out what Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are. Find out what God is. Find out what Ein Sof is. See what Teilechu is, what's Bechkosei, and then you'll see if there's nothing here. You'll find that this is real Ein Sof. It's Ein Sof that is being manifested in real life. It's not just Ein Sof as another fat and another high, so I should be able to escape my pain. I have a brother-in-law. He's a Chabad Shliach in Manhattan, Upper East Side. His name is Rabbi Benzia Krasnyansky. So years ago, he told me that he was once invited to go to some spiritual group in Manhattan. You know my brother-in-law. And it was a bunch of Buddhist Jews. And it was some Buddhist meeting, but they said to go to a lot of Jews. Fine. At the end, there were questions and answers, and he wasn't the guest, he wasn't the rabbi. He was just there as visiting to meet some people. But one of the Jews said, there's a rabbi, I want to ask you a question. Of course. He says, you probably believe that the only path to God is through Judaism, not through Buddhism, right? And I am angry at that. He didn't even ask him what he believes. He already got angry. Why? Because look at the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is an amazing human being. He's enlightened, he's kind, he's gracious, he's compassionate, he's joyous. So why wouldn't you say that there's a path through Judaism? There's a path through Buddhism. If we can all be like the Dalai Lama, it would be amazing. What are you supposed to say? So my brother-in-law is a he's a sharp mind. So he says, you just complimented the Dalai Lama. But we have a rule in Judaism that we don't believe anything anybody says about any man until we don't ask his wife. That's how we work. People could say, this guy, then you talk to his wife, you find out the truth. So you're telling me about the Dalai Lama, how amazing he is? I'm happy to agree and say, yes, Buddhism is the way, but I first have to speak to Mrs. Dalai Lama and find out what's really happening behind closed doors, because a lot of men, in public, they're saints, and in the house, they're sharks. So the guy starts laughing. He says, I knew that Orthodox Jews were ignorant, but so ignorant? The Dalai Lama doesn't have a missus. The Dalai Lama does not get married. My brother-in-law says, and that's the point. And that's the point. You got it. You understand? Ein kiddush ela b'makom suda. It's a different inyan. Yeah, I could be on top of a mountain and meditate and not to be mevatel. It would be very good for us to be on top of a mountain and do some meditation. But by definition, the kedusha of Yiddishkeit is to integrate it. That there could be a Mrs. Dalai Lama. Prishas could be in heaven too. I could be in heaven alone. It's enlightenment. But it's not the depth of Jewish enlightenment, which is about integration, synthesis. So that's a dogma to what Alter Rebbe is saying here. Okay, let's go 5 more minutes because I want to finish the Maimon. Mamish 5 minutes. I know how late it is.
You could finish in 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll finish tomorrow. You're right. It's good I said bli neder. I always say bli neder. And you teufels dinge, this last word. Im loshen tachanunim. Yeah. Yosef HaTzadik. That he was in the world, you say. Yeah. The Bechkosei telechu, if you want real telechu, it should be Bechkosei. What's Bechkosei? It says Bechkosei, as we said, is the Oisis HaChakika. You want that the letters should be aligned with the infinite. That's true. But you want they should be aligned with the infinite. In simple words, when you go back to yourself, you want to go back to your real self. You know? And when you go to those deep places, you can get lost. You can get lost. People have gone on journeys. They discovered a lot of deep things. And sometimes they become more arrogant than everybody else. They look around the room, all these stupid people who are still following their stupid traditions. I saw the light. You understand? That's their big enlightenment. I saw the light. Everybody else is in the dark. Come, let me teach you guys about the light. All you brainwashed little kids. The moment I'm in that space, what did I reach? I reached a place of arrogance. But now my arrogance has what to stand on. Till then, I was arrogant because I was a shoita. Now I'm arrogant because I'm a chacham, so I'm much worse off. The arrogance that comes from shtus, you can heal. Yeah, exactly. When you're ignorant because you're arrogant because you're ignorant, so get some knowledge, you won't be ignorant. Now I got knowledge and I'm still arrogant, and now I'm in a real mess. Because the knowledge didn't help me. I got the wrong knowledge. I got a very limited form of knowledge. Huh? You mean haskala, not avoida? Oh. Yeah, that's not today the nisayan. You're talking about haskala, the enlightenment. That's not today the challenge. Today everybody's looking for spirituality, for emotional healing. Haskala, they weren't into spirituality, emotional. They were into very much science and literature and grammar and eloquence and sophistication. It was a different nisayan. Today very few people are busy with that. Nobody's interested. Haskala was enlightenment. It's taking them away from the Dalet Amos Shel Halacha with the tzimtzum and open you up to the big world. The walls of the ghettos are gone. Jews could go into the life of university. They could become equal partners with humanity. And of course, Germany became the hotbed of enlightenment until the Holocaust. Right? That was it. There too, but it's a good mashal, because what happened over there? The Jews felt that all the stereotypes about Jews are gone. The reason there's stereotypes is because we have a beard and payas. If we'll get rid of the beard, you get rid of the payas, you get rid of the yarmulke, you become integrated, they're going to love us. Napoleon, who's the father of French emancipation, so he had somebody in his committee, his council, so he once said, to the To the Jew as an individual, we'll give everything. To the Jew as part of a people, we give nothing. So every Jew said, if I get let go of the people, right? They took out from the Siddur of Nei Yerushalayim, that's how the reform started. We become regular people. To the Jew as an individual, I'm a German Jew, I'm a French Jew, I'm an English Jew. Well, they'll get everything. We don't care about Jews. We're not old Christians who stereotype people. They're Jews. What happened? What was the emes? The emes is they got away from nothing. They got away from nothing because it was all a sheker. They thought they stripped themselves and they became integrated. They became integrated, but nobody accepted them because they were running away from reality. And the worst anti-Semitism came from there. Right? It's like Jews today in America. They thought that they're left-wing liberals and everybody loves them. And then 1,200 Jews are murdered in Israel and nobody could say a word. Even the women who protect women who are hurt and violated couldn't protest. And suddenly they realized, Am levadad yishkan. Whenever you create a reality that is inconsistent with reality, it's going to come back to bite you. You understand? I decide tomorrow I'm a horse. I could behave like a horse, but it's going to come back to bite me. You know why? Because I'm not a horse. So when Jews decide they're something else, it works for a few years, but it doesn't really work because you're not true to yourself. The same is true today also when you're talking about spiritual challenges. In the work of spiritual growth, you have to go to your true self, not to a substitute for your true self. In the beginning, it looks good. What's the difference? You know, if you have two lines, right? If you have two lines, they start off together and they're going straight. And then one of them says, you know, I don't like this path. It's too dogmatic. So I'm just going to go a little bit to the left. And the other one says, okay, I'm going to go a little bit to the right because I also have to be original. So the next day, they're still pretty close because they just went off a drop to an angle. They didn't go up to 90 degrees, 180 degrees. They went a drop, right? But after a year, you know how far these two lines are from each other? You understand what I'm saying? So it's very, very sensitive. It's very sensitive. Huh?
Skippers and sailors on the boat. And my new thing was 3 days later it could be either.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, sailors, captains in boats, right? It looks like nothing, right? You took a little right, what's the big deal? You'll go right back. But a week later, you know, you're heading to Australia instead of Africa. I mean, you're in a different continent. You're heading to Brazil, right? That's how Columbus discovered America. So the point is, that's what he said, the im lashon tachanunim is that you should be able to find what you need to find. You're looking for Isis Achkika. So you're looking for Be'evid Anar Yashva V'Seichem. So you want to tune in to the Evid Anar of V'Seichem, of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And that's the tefillah of the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah. That's what he's saying. And then there'll be Teilechu. But if I'm looking for my Isis Achkika, what's Isis Achkika? You're looking for that which is engraved in you, not that which is written on you. Written on me is that what I was taught by people. Right? All the messages I got from everybody. What's engraved? Engraved is who were you before everything. Right? Engraved is who are you, Taka? If we can go back, you know, take you back all the way to your Chakika. In other words, who are you really without any stereotypes, without any misconceptions, without any messages, without anything that happened or was fed to you. You, Isis Achakika. Let me see. Open your heart. Let's see what you're made of. And what's engraved inside. Written is things that were added, right? Chakika is that which is you. So let's look what it looks like. Let's see what it looks like. So that's what we're searching for. And it's an incredible search. And in this search, it's so easy to get lost because you're touching something that's infinite. So why would structures help you? All structures should be demolished. And that's what usually happens. You destroy and demolish all the structures because they're all written, they're not engraved. You're looking for chakika. And what happens? So then I go and I search and I search. In the beginning it's very, very exciting, but then I'm more lost than everybody else. Because now I'm lost in vast infinity. At least before, I was lost between a couple of buildings, Now I'm in this, now you're in outer space. And you're lost. There's no anchor. So now I'm completely lost. So do I find myself? I don't know. It becomes a different painful experience. So people make decisions, you understand, based on that, but they don't make decisions based on who they really, really, really are. How do you find out who you really, really, really are? For this, you have to learn Likkutei Torah, then you find out who you really are. So you say, why is Alter Rebbe going to tell me who I am? He's not going to tell you who you are. He's going to open you up to realize who you are. Nobody tells you who you are. Nobody could tell you who you are. But be'evid anar yashva v'seichem, those who live be'evid anar, their consciousness be'evid anar, and with love, they brought that evid anar down to our consciousness. They open us up to who we really are. And when it resonates, it resonates. You know it's true. Like it resonates. Can I deny it? Of course I could deny it. If I don't want to be honest, I don't have to be honest. Somebody says, so what? So you want me to remain married to my wife and 5 kids, and now I have to come home every day, and I have to know what my wife wants, or what my kids want, I have to support them. Why can't I connect to truth? So it's a very, very good question. And what's the answer to that? So, but the truth is that ultimately, this person will not experience bliss. They'll experience bliss for a year. Because to detach from your wife and your children, you're going against your oisis hachakika. You're not going against your oisis haksiva. You're going against your oisis hachakika. Is it possible that the marriage was arranged, or the marriage wasn't the best marriage, and that these kids give you headaches? Yeah, tsar gidul bana. Yaakov didn't run away from Leah and from all of his kids, because you don't run away. Your kids are you. You don't run away from your children. You think you're going to be happy? Everyone gets upset at their children. So what, you cut them out of your life because you're upset at them? This is who you are. You got to work this out. This is your oisis hachakika. Bliss doesn't come from cutting out your stomach and cutting out your heart and cutting out your soul. It doesn't work that way. You have to be able, we need to be able to find the compassion and the empathy on the pain, and then from there heal. Okay, I think we said enough, no? Huh? Never enough. Telechu. Okay, Be'ezer Hashem will meet tomorrow, 7:45 a.m. And Bli Neder, finish the mimer. Huh? Oh. How do you have Rachmanis on yourself?
I'm asking, and how do you define that versus self-pity?
Oh, so self-pity is very different. Self-pity is judgment. Self-pity is, I'm such a victim, I'm such a loser. It's the opposite of rachamim. It's judgment. It's just, instead of being judgmental in the sense of an arrogant judgmentalism on others, this is a judgmentalism towards me. What a victim I am. What a stupid victim I am. I made so many mistakes. I'll forever make mistakes. Somebody told me a line, when pain touches fear, it becomes pity. When pain touches empathy, it becomes love. So I think that's the difference. It's very often harder to do on yourself because we know everything inside of ourselves and we have so many judgments and our brain doesn't like rachamim. All our defense mechanisms will stand up against rachamim because there's nothing that is as healing as rachamim. That's why people, if I don't feel rachamim in myself, there's no way I can feel empathy towards my wife, towards my children, towards my loved ones, towards anybody. It's not going to happen. When I look at you, it's right. Why are you being a loser? I can't feel the other because what I do with me, I'm going to do with you. What I do with me, I do with you. I just put it in a box. I put it in a judgment, and rachamim with yourself opens the door for rachamim with others. So self-pity is a whole different experience. Self-pity is the ultimate judgment. Misken, ani misken. Misken is a nebach, a nebach case. Rachamim always comes from a vision of greatness. Ani lo misken. The eye that's having rachamim is an eye that by definition is rooted in greatness. It's the eagle that says, I wish I could be an eagle. Why am I a chicken? That eye that said, I wish I could be an eagle, is an eagle. It's not a chicken. You know how I know? Because if it would have been a chicken, it wouldn't have said, I wish I could be an eagle. You always have to remember that. That pain is rooted in very, very deep awareness. It's rooted in your greatness. Why are you in pain? Yeah, you're a loser. You were supposed to be a loser. They say there was a guy, he went to therapy. And after 4 hours, this was a therapist, he says, I give 1 session and I heal you. So this guy comes, Dr. Plotkin, he's there for 4 hours, cost him $3,000. He says, no. He says, yeah, you suffer from a low self-esteem. He says, really? That's what I came for you? He says, but I know I suffer, but why? He said, it's not unusual with losers like you. It's not unusual. he got all the explanations. Of course you're low. So why shouldn't you have a low self-esteem? You want a squirrel to feel like an elephant? Why? Why should a squirrel feel like an elephant? Why? Yeah, you feel like a squirrel. Yeah, you're scared of elephants. Yeah, because you're a squirrel. Sorry. Of course you have low self-esteem. Well, what's the issue? All pain, if it's pain coming from this place, self-pity is not pain coming from this place. Self-pity is, I'm a loser who's feeling like a loser and feels like a loser feeling like a loser. Rachamim is always from a place of the eagle is in pain for the fact that she became a chicken and she doesn't know she's an eagle. But she knows that she has pain. If she knew she was an eagle, she wouldn't have pain. That contrast is creating pain. The contrast itself shows you who you are. That's its power. So now the question is, why do I have to be a chicken? Once I know that, tomorrow I don't have to be a chicken anymore. I could be an eagle. Now my brain is going to go back to being a chicken because I've been doing it for 79 years. I don't know anything else. Okay, so you have to continue. So I have to continue the exercise. That's number one. And number two, self-pity is with judgment. Compassion is without judgment. So compassion just looks at the reality without giving it labels. When you don't give it labels, you let it be. And here's the secret, that inside of it, there's a healing mechanism. That's what it means. God is there. Whenever you confront reality, you're in a good place. Most of our stuckness is that we're afraid of reality. I don't want to look at reality. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I'm going to be judged. So I create substitutes for reality. If I could stay with reality as is, and if I cry, I cry. And if I feel the grief and the pain, I feel it. But if you stay with that reality and without sugarcoating it, without numbing it, without checking my phone to see if there's something entertaining, right? Without blaming myself for it, without saying, yeah, but it's going to atone for whatever. Just to stay with the reality as is, behind the tears, behind the pain, under it, like in the depth of it, you're going to find God. What does it mean you're going to find God? What does that mean? I don't mean superstition. You're going to find love.
Healing will happen.
You'll find healing, you'll find truth. I don't know what that truth looks like. It's not necessarily beautiful, easy truth, but you're going to find truth. And healing is only truth. Healing is about truth. Healing is about alignment with truth. There's no other healing in the world. What's healing? Healing is that you become who you're supposed to become, which is who you are, which is dveikus. That's healing. Healing is dveikus. Healing doesn't mean I understand everything. Healing doesn't mean everything is perfect. Healing is I don't have responsibility. I can go to southern France on vacation for 18 years and you'll pay. Healing means that you're aligned. You are who you are. That's healing. And that could be very painful too. But in that pain, there's something deeper than the pain. There's truth, there's connection, there's healing, there's oneness, there's soul knowing who it is. That only happens when I let it be. And the midah that lets everything be is rachamim. That's why it's powerful. So people say, oh, so now I don't have to do anything, I'll just have compassion. With rachamim, you'll end up doing much more. You'll be more productive. Because then when I say, okay, so this is what I have to do, I do it with an open heart. When I do it without rachamim, I do it but with a closed heart. I do it out of guilt. I do it out of shame. I do it out of pressure, out of anxiety. You know, when people are doing things out of crazy pressure, they're not even doing it. They're like robots. They're zombies. It's like I'm doing a mitzvah, but it's like it looks like I'm going to the gallows. You know, it's like you're doing everything. You're doing b'dikas chametz. You're going to a seder, right? You're coming to shul, but it's like nebach. Like the guy wants to be dead. So I'm doing everything, but it's out of so much pressure and anxiety. Lachatz, 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 lachatz. That's not a person. That's not how a soul wants to live. Midas harachimim just opens up the person. And the relationships are deeper also. So it's a very honest, that's why Yaakov is Midas HaEmes. What's the connection of Rachamim, Tiferes, Rachamim, Emes? It's all Titin Emes LeYaakov Chesed LaAvram, the Navi says in Micha. Why Emes? It's interesting. Why is compassion Emes? It's not Emes. Emes is truth. Right? Truth is Musar, is Emes. What's Rachamim is nice. Somebody told me that they would come to my classes, and then they spoke to somebody. So they said, Rabbi, why was classes are only for sick people? You're healthy, you don't have to come. Midas harachim is for sick people. You need rachamim. I'm healthy, you're healthy. What do you have to come? So I answered, I said, it's a compliment. Because the Arizal says that choyle is begematria mem tes. Ches. Vav Lamed Hey. So the Arizal says that if you have Memtes Shari Bine, that's when you get sick, because you're looking for the Shar Hanun. So I said it's a compliment. I said the only people who are healthy in this world are people who know that they're sick. The Arizal at the Ken Zagen that if you have Memtes Shari Bine, you're a Chayla. It says Vayere love Hashem to Avram Avinu levaker es hachayla. So there's a Taich in Chassidus that Avram Avinu was begematria mem tests, and he was looking for Shara Nun. So Hashem came to Levaker Esachayla to give him the Shara Nun. Har Nevoy is Nun boy. Why am I saying this? Oh, it looks like Rachamim is for sick people. Nebuch, you're sick, right? So I come, I visit you, and I have empathy. Real people, what Rachamim? Just get on with your life, you idiot. Right? Rachamim is like, he's a Rachmanis case. Well, what do people say? He's a Rachmanis case. What does a Rachmanis case mean? Doesn't have a job, yeah? Thrown out of his house. His parents don't talk to him, yeah? He's homeless, right? So he's a Rachmanis case. Those are the people you have Rachmanis on. And you give a check, and everybody feels good. Why is that Midas HaEmes? Why is that Midas HaEmes? That's not truth. It's Nebuch. Truth. Get a job. Get your life together. Wake up 6 o'clock in the morning. Do some exercise. Stop eating potato chips all day and get your life together and stop schnodding. That's emes. No, we're not saying people shouldn't get their life together. Fakert. Midas harachim is the only midas emes. Everything else is not emes. Chesed is not emes and gvura is not emes. Doesn't mean Chas v'Shalom Avram wasn't emes and Yitzchak wasn't emes. It means that the real nekuda of emes is in rachamim. You know why? Because compassion simply is tuning into reality without any cover-ups. And you know what happens then? Then you see all the pain, but then you see all the greatness. You see all the loss, you see all the potential. You see all the pain, but you see all the love behind the pain. You see the chicken, but you see the eagle. And then you find the healing in the pain. It's emes because it trusts reality. You know what emes means? Emes means you trust reality. Emes means there's a truth behind it. You don't have to be scared. You know, if you have a meisid and it's all based on falsehood, right? you're afraid of anybody opening the books, because what are they going to find? If you have a business and it's illegal, so you cover everything up. When don't you cover things up? When you know that there's emes, right? If you have a movement, or you have a kehillah, or you have a school, or you have a family, and it's all based on sheker, right? There's 1,000 cover-ups. You make sure that nobody knows what's happening. Because, right, if everybody knows what's happening, they're going to run away. Who are the people that don't care if you know everything? If it's emes, I don't care. I'm not afraid. Open, look, investigate, look more. You're not going to find dirt. It's fine. Even if you'll find dirt, it's going to be on the top. You'll go deeper, you won't find any dirt. Only midas ha'emes is not afraid of reality. You know why? Because there's emes. It's fine. And that's rachamim. You teufus. It's a moide dike inyan. And that's why emes is nachal b'limit. Emes is not afraid. It's in heaven, it's in earth, it's in darkness, it's in light. I'm not afraid of truth. Rachamim is not afraid of truth. It's emes. It just opens up. And when things open up, you'll see reality. And once you see reality, you'll know what to do. Yeah, of course you should get a job. Of course you don't have to be a chicken. You can be an eagle. Of course, you already know what to do. We're not worried about it. We don't have to protect truth. You have to protect lies. You don't have to protect truth. I once heard from Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz a very interesting thing. Stam, it's an interesting thing. He was talking about the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So he said that there's two types of great people. There's a great person, the more distant you are from them, the greater they are. The closer you get to them, the smaller they become. If you move into their house, they become very small. If you sleep with them in one bedroom, you run away. If you spend too much time with them, and he said, and it's normal. From the distance, they have an aura, right? You get closer, you see, he's also a moody Meshugana like me. You know what I mean? And then you get closer, and then if you're really close, it's like, okay, no. All my problems, he has even worse. At least I'm not lying, and he has to make a show, so you get turned off. He said something, by the Rebbe, it was funk farket. You saw the people that were closest. I remember how the Rebbe's secretaries would go into him every day, Rabbi Groner, and they would, you could see their awe like 50, 40 years later. He said the closer you got, the more distant you felt. Because when you're further, it's like, okay, you have respect. But then when you get really close and you're like, now you really see it's a different Yiras HaKavod. You're so close and you see that it's a completely different inyan. Not just because you don't know. You see, and then it's like, it's a different Yiras HaKavod because you're so close. And he said that greatness, he said it's very interesting, he said greatness, we look at greatness, a person is great, they have an aura, they have a reputation. He says greatness is something that's very, very deep inside. And it's not expressed in public things. It's even expressed how you sit down to eat, how you'll read something, how you have a regular conversation. It's a different type of greatness. And he said a lot of greatness that we're familiar, he says, like a peacock. You ever saw a peacock lifting its beautiful, majestic feathers, right? It's something special. Emes? Right? And it lifts it up and it's like, wow. He says a lot of great people, he says, G'dolim, they're like peacocks. They really have beautiful feathers and they're blue and green and red. He says, but then he would speak very dramatically, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, he says, then you cut off all the feathers. And you know what happens when you cut off all the feathers from a peacock? It's an ugly chicken. It's like an ugly chicken by Kaparis. You know those chickens? He says, it's just a bunch of feathers. He says, then there's greatness. It's not about the feathers. So I'm saying, midas ha'emes, the closer you get to it, right? The closer, it'll be more emes, not going to be less emes. It's going to be more emes. This is a type of greatness, you can't forge it, you can't substitute it. And it's not a greatness that depends on people, right? The fact that there's one person or a billion or a million people, it's irrelevant. The people, It's a schus for them to get it. If they don't get it, they don't get it. It's not about people because they don't make it. They don't take away from it. They don't. Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't have been less great if he would have remained in the desert. The Baal Shem Tov wouldn't have been less great if he would have remained in the forest. Fakert. It's not the people that make it. The people have a schus to see it a little bit. And if not, not. Interesting, no? Very beautifully put. People are so desperate for greatness that they're ready to sell their souls just to say they're around greatness. But it could be very disappointing. You have to find your own greatness. The chicken has to find the eagle inside. Okay. You think a 2-hour shiur is long enough? Or it's not long enough? It says about money in Medrash that whoever has 100 wants 200. 200, you want 400. 400, you want 800. But I'm not sure it works like that with speeches or shiurim. But with chassidus, it works like that. Everybody have a beautiful day.
For those of us without a job, what do we do now?
For those of you who have a job, get your life together. Wake up early in the morning. Get a job so that you don't have to be supported by your father-in-law. Just joking. I know you're not supported by your father-in-law.
The one thing we told me was, we don't have money.